Alright, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I'm going to start going over this Bootstrap tutorial. And if you have any interest in taking a look at it yourself, blow this up a little bit so you can see it. There's where it is. Cut the font down just a tad. Okay, so if you're interested, it's at http://www.quackit.com/bootstrap_4/tutorial/ and I don't know, maybe you've at some time in your life, for example, you've gone to a movie and a friend asks you when you get back, was it good? And you're like, parts of it were good and parts of it were bad, whatever. It's kind of how this tutorial is. It is very well done. Some of it is very strong and some of it's not. So it starts out strong, it gets a little weak, and we will also not just go through the tutorial, but we'll also go through the Bootstrap 4 examples, and there are many of them. Okay, so let's jump back to the tutorial. And there are 32 lessons if I count it right in here, and I plan on going through about 4 at a time. So I'll do 4, that'll be one lecture, another 4, etc. A couple of them are a little longer, so I might end up having to switch that around a little bit. So what is Bootstrap? Well, again, I don't want to read to you, but as mentioned there, it's free and it's open source. All right, it's very popular. It's not quite drag and drop, but once you start to learn how to use the Bootstrap class structure and you start to understand everything that's available to you and for you, it's kind of fun, for lack of better words. All right, the big thing though is it's responsive, and that's what they're talking about in here. Bootstrap, unlike a lot of software products that can be used to create websites, is mobile first. They claim here, one framework, every device. So in other words, you can write things for anything from a mobile phone to a desktop to anything bigger you have, and anything in between those. Again, it's mobile first. That means that it's been primarily designed for mobile devices. By thinking of mobile first, typically mobile is the hardest one to get and get right. So by doing a mobile first type of an idea, all right, it's much easier to scale up as opposed to starting big and scaling down. Bootstrap contains a lot of components, and that's what this particular tutorial series is about. All right, you can read those yourselves. As mentioned there, in most cases, you can make use of the components simply by using the appropriate class name, or as often will be, names, plural. Advantages of Bootstrap: it can speed up development time. You can create high quality, consistent looking websites that should look virtually the same across different browsers, different platforms, different devices. All right. Adding Bootstrap, they say there, to your bag of tricks can help you in many ways, from building websites faster to landing your dream job. All right. Bootstrap has its own set of styles, but still they're easy to override. So, who's using Bootstrap? I mean, they give you some examples here, but these, they're not piddly little places. NASA, FIFA, Newsweek, and there are literally, you can go and look this up yourself up on Google. There are literally thousands, if not millions, of places that are using Bootstrap. So, some of this here is stuff that we looked at earlier, but again, I don't think repetition is necessarily a bad thing. If you decide that when you use Bootstrap that you want to link to CDN files, okay, then as mentioned, you can place this in the head. And I've already got it in there. I really do. My stuff is in here, but I'm going to create a new document and put, oh, in fact, there it is. But let's get rid of it. We'll bring it back again. All right, So here's the first one. This is the one again that you place in the head of your document. All right, this is the link to the style sheet. And the key thing, as we take a quick look here, and I'll make this a little smaller, there. https://maxcdn.bootstrap/4.0.0-alpha.6/css/bootstrap.min.css. And one of the key things is this is the latest version of Bootstrap. All right, it's the one that when you go out to the alpha 4, getbootstrap.com, that's the one that you come up with. So this file should go in the head section of your document. All right. These three files right here, these three should go into the body of your document. So again, this goes in the head section, and I'm not writing real code here. This goes in the body section. Okay? And the reason that you typically do it like that, you put these three files in the body section, and they should be in that order, is the head loads before the body. So by putting them in the body, if your code attempts to access anything that's in the head section, you can be fairly confident that it's been loaded, even complex graphics. All right, and this is jQuery, this is Tether, and this is Bootstrap Min CSS. Remember, this was Bootstrap Min, this is Bootstrap Min CSS. This is Bootstrap Min JS. So this is the CSS for Bootstrap. That's the JavaScript for Bootstrap. Now, I'm going to do something, just for no other reason, for my own amusement. And I'm going to come out here, and I don't like to waste time, so hopefully I'm not. Why add the tether.js file to Bootstrap? Bootstrap 4 requires tether. It says created a new project and got this error. JavaScript runtime error. Bootstrap tooltips require tether. And it says there Bootstrap 4 requires tether. Now I'm not sure if it totally requires tether, but there's a lot of things that you may want to use in Bootstrap that do require tether. All right, so I just showed you the CDN for all three, and it's very important that you realize that if you are to download all of these, they must be done in this order. jQuery first, because tether depends on some stuff that's in jQuery, and bootstrap.min.js needs tether, and it also needs some of the stuff if you're going to use the JavaScript components that are in jQuery. All right. Now they do explain some of this stuff. I've talked about this before in other portions of this class, but let's just go over it one more time. The stuff right here, and again, I'll copy it and just, whoops, and paste it in here. That would go up at the top, of course. But by now, everyone should feel good about what this is. Again, what's in gray there says that the document type that you're about to create, that's an HTML5 document type. The word doc type can be in lowercase, uppercase, or any mixed case. All right, but it takes the place of those long-winded doc type statements that you used to have to put in for HTML files. Then HTML, the beginning tag, if you don't use the lang equal en, which is language equal English, all right, I believe it defaults to English. but it's recommended you use that anyway. Then you have all your other stuff and you end it with an HTML tag. So again, that shouldn't be anything new to anyone. This viewport tag, we may have talked about this before, we may not have. I don't know, but let's bring it up again anyway. Whoops. And go, no, not there, go over it. There we go. All right. So it says name equal viewport. This is used for mobile devices. This says, for lack of better words, use the entire width of the device whenever possible. This says set the scaling to 100%. And this says shrink to fit. No, I'm not sure what that is. There used to be a thing that you put in here where so you couldn't pinch it, your phone, to make your file bigger or smaller. That might be the new thing for that. I'm not sure. But again, all of this stuff is to be able to handle mobile devices, and in particular, mobile phones. I gave you this quick start tutorial before, so there's nothing in there we haven't really talked about. Let's grab it and double check that. And I'll just make myself some room here and paste the whole thing in from the top. All right. So we mentioned the doc type already. We mentioned the HTML tag already. All right. Inside of your head tag, so in between here, we've got what? Our title tag, our meta tag, which says that the character set we're using is UTF-8, which basically means we're using Unicode. The viewport, which I just mentioned to you, and your style sheet, all right, which is your bootstrap.min.css style sheet. All right, remember, then comes your body, and everything you do should go inside of a div with class equal container. And at the bottom, you put in the 3 files that we just mentioned, those being jQuery, tether, and bootstrap.min.js. All right? That's pretty much it for that first part, so let's move on to containers. It says containers provide the foundation for page layout. In other words, virtually everything either has to or at least should go inside of a container. Now, when you do, let's look at the 2 differences between these. All right? The first one says a fixed container is a responsive fixed width. As you resize the browser, it remains intact until a browser hits a certain point, at which time it resizes to the new width for that breakpoint. So let's, we've got that in here right now. In fact, what I did was I went back to the index file that we had used before, and I still have that copy. I think I called it like index 2 or something like that. So or just index copy. I still have this one. This is where I just built this thing from scratch for you and threw a whole bunch of stuff in there. So I still have that. But what I've done is I've taken in my actual index.html, I've taken everything out of there. Everything. Except my div class equal container. So you'll notice that if I run this, I made it blue, okay? And you can see that it's taking up everything. It's taking up the entire width. Okay? What if we go in and we change that to the other possibility? And again, the other possibility is div class equal container dash fluid. It says a fluid container spans the full width of the viewport. It will try to expand and contract fluidly as you resize the browser. Now, does that make any sense? Well, let's look at it first. It may not look any different in here, but I think I can hopefully at least come up with a better way of showing you this. So we'll change this from container to class equal container fluid. Okay, I don't think it's going to look any different, but I could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. So there it is. Let's refresh. Doesn't look any different to me. Now let's do this. Let's go back to what I now have that's called index copy. Oops, I don't want that. This thing right here that's got all of that. All right, you can see that I've got borders over here, and you can also see that we looked at this before, that as I make this smaller, it automatically adjusts. And there's nothing special I had to do to make this happen. All right, it's built into the software. Now, if I go back and I change this from container to class equal container fluid, that's the only change I made. All right, you see what it looks like. Let's refresh. Did you notice how it expanded? And it's now virtually taking up the entire screen length. All right, so fluid takes as much room, it's as greedy as it can possibly be, for lack of better words. And that's it for talking about containers. Okay, let's next go into the Bootstrap Grid system. This is one place where, to my knowledge, this hasn't changed too much from Bootstrap 3. The Bootstrap Grid is based on, or the grid system is based on the concept of 12. That every time you put something into a Bootstrap grid, it must equal 12. So here we've got size 1, so there's 12 columns, all the same size. There's one of 2, one of 3, and one of 7. 4, 4, 4, 5, 7, 6, 6, 12. But what you should notice when you look at all of these, every one of them, all right, they all equal 12. All right, and we're going to get into this more as we go on. But it says grid systems enable you to create advanced layouts using rows and columns. The Bootstrap grid system can have up to 12 columns. Here's an example. The numbers at the end of each class name represent the number of columns, spans. So a col SM1, like we see here, spans one column, and a col SM8, and I don't even know if we have one of those here, spans 8 columns. SM means apply this to small devices and everything above. You can use small and or MD for medium and or LG for large and or XL for extra large. Now we're just starting with this, so I'm going to keep it simple and use as little of this as I think we have to use. All right. Then they talk about stacking horizontal. Again, I'm not going to hit on that for right now. If you want to know more about this, take a look at the chart here. If you notice, extra small is for less than 576 pixels. That would typically be for any kind of cell phone. All right, any kind of mobile phone. Greater than this, so if you talk like between 576 and 768, for example, that would probably be pretty much the size, a typical size for tablets. And it goes on from there. Now, it's always going to differ depending on the screen resolution, how you've got your system set up, etc. Things to remember, they say here with grids. Grids should be placed within a container. Again, either a container or a container fluid. All right. Also, the grid system should be inside of a div where the ID is row. Or in fact, each one really should be. Okay. Columns, notice, contain padding, but you can change the default values if you need to, want to, whatever. Can you have more than 12 columns in a row? If you do place more than 12 columns in a row, it wraps to a new line. Okay? It says, so for example, if you have a 10 and a 3, the whole 3 will wrap to the new line, not just 2 of the 3. You don't have to use all 12 columns. You can use any number up to 12. Sometimes you don't use all of them, and you might not use it for effect. You can use multiple classes for a given element. So again, this is saying I want to use 10 columns if it's a small viewport, and I want to use 6 columns if it's a medium or a large viewport. Remember, it always scales up. So if all you put in here is this, that'll be 10 regardless of the media type that you have. If you have these two, it'll be one of those two, but it'll never use the large or the extra large. All right, it'll just scale based on the medium value. All right, I think that's the first 3. 1, 2, we did what is Bootstrap, we did getting started, we did containers, and we did the grid system. Okay, maybe I'll just cut this down and I'll just do them 4 at a time, because I think we're already up to pretty close to 20 minutes. So, yes we are. So I'm going to pick it up again with typography in just a couple minutes.